Welcome back everyone to this nightmare. In case you didn't see the last video, we started going through SAO, which was my first anime. Back then, my poor misguided soul thought that this show was it. The awesome presentation of the game, the romance between Kirito and Asuna, let's see, Revisiting this show, however, has revealed to me exactly why it's so harshly criticized by everyone. The events that take place are completely disjointed, characters are constantly being written in and then back out of the story, and Kirito is basically Jesus. All of the obvious flaws I've already found worried me significantly, considering this arc is what I remember to be the best part of the show. At least from what I've seen. I stopped following the show after season 2 ended, and I think there's like 4 seasons now. Don't you worry though, we won't be done after season 2. Oh no, I'm in this for the long haul. We're gonna go through every episode SAO currently has to offer, and when they make more, we're gonna do more, and more, and more, until there's nothing left of me. This time though, we're going to cover the rest of this arc that we started last time. So far the plot has just meandered around and told whatever stories with whatever characters, but who knows, maybe this latter half will focus things up and deliver some solid storytelling. Okay, I'm not wasting anyone's time with this joke anymore. You and I both know that the show didn't learn anything from its past mistakes, so let's just stop delaying the inevitable and get on with this. What was his name again? So one of the big problems with the show I mentioned in the last video was that it just feels incredibly disjointed. Each episode's plot is mostly isolated and not really followed up on in any substantial way. Well, this episode just makes that problem even worse right off the bat. Last episode was pretty much just a filler story, with the only semblance of progression being Kirito making a new sword with the help of this blacksmith girl. Considering that, it's extremely strange to go straight from this pointless romantic fling to doing a random 2-year time jump. Deciding to put a time jump in your story is an extremely risky move, as it creates a significant disconnect for the events that took place between. When done right, it can be extremely effective, like in Attack on Titan for example. Just after the biggest question that's been posed throughout the entire series is answered, the plot skips 4 years into the future. This choice was made because the answer to that question shifted the entire status quo of this world. When things get more serious, a time jump can be a great way to throw the viewer straight into the darker version of the world that the reveal led to. In SAO's case, however, this choice does nothing but make me ask why. Why separate these parts of the story when all it does is make it even harder to invest my time in it? The first half had a decent starting episode and then just decided to do nothing important for the next 6. There hasn't been any event that's nearly significant enough to warrant this. It also forces me to think about how great their bodies must look after 2 years of being in virtual reality, but there's no need to nitpick a show that gives me so much to complain about. Anyways, enough about the time jump, let's just see what this episode's all about. The episode starts with Kirito explaining to us how 2 years have passed and that he's been fighting solo on the front lines. I didn't really mention this before, but the creator of the game told the players that they could escape the game just as long as they beat it. So most players up until now have been trying to work together to push through all the game's floors and get to the end of it. It's been 2 years now though, and most people have given up their efforts to escape. Not Kirito though, not our golden boy. After seeing him destroy this random enemy, we're shown a scene of him killing an animal that drops a rare cooking ingredient. He immediately tries to sell it since he doesn't have the cooking skill to make use of it, but the potential buyer doesn't either. During this interaction, Asuna walks in and Kirito exclaims,
"I've got my chef!"
What, chef?
"Dude, you've already gawked over her cooking like 3 times. She should have come to mind the moment you picked up the ingredient." Whatever, that's irrelevant. Now they're walking and Asuna's bodyguard, who completely despises Kirito, shows up and is clearly attempting to separate the two for some reason. And by some reason, I mean because he's very obviously a bad guy who's trying to harm her in some way. The show's making it so obvious that this guy is evil, and I don't know if it was intentional or not, but it just kind of makes it boring. You can completely predict where it's going because of it, but I'll go into that more when it gets revealed in a later episode. Asuna tells him to leave them alone, but he refuses because he supposedly doesn't feel safe leaving her with Kirito. She tells him not to worry as Kirito is 10 levels above him, and I'm not even joking when I say that he uses beater as an insult towards Kirito. You know, Kirito's cute little nickname given to him to indicate that he's both a beta tester and a cheater. Yeah, that's the one. It's beyond hilarious to me that this is an official term now because the people who called him that in the first place came up with it on the spot. I'm not even going to complain though because this had me laughing a lot harder than I'm willing to admit. After this, because Asuna takes Kirito and runs off to another floor to get away from the bodyguard. She then talks to him about how her guild all of a sudden has all these weird rules and regulations that weren't there before, and how it just isn't the same as it used to be. Now they go to Asuna's place, eat the rare ingredient, do some awkward flirting, you know, the usual routine. During the meal, they decide they want to work together to push further into the front lines. So after this scene, we cut to the next day where Kirito is waiting for Asuna to meet him for this endeavor. She comes flying out of a portal and lands right on top of Kirito, who apparently has never come in contact with a boob before.
What is this thing?
What do you mean, what is this thing? Either Kirito is abysmally stupid or a complete horn dog just trying to cop a quick feel. Then this damn bodyguard shows up again, but after what just happened, I'm surprised Asuna's not hiding behind him instead of Mr. Beater over here. Anyways, the beef between these two is heating up, so naturally they engage in a duel. Obviously Kirito wins, being the absolute giga chad that he apparently is, so the guard runs off for the time being, cursing the dastardly Beater who bested him. Now that this little diversion is over, we move on to them actually fighting on the front lines. Kirito, seeing Asuna in action, makes the obvious remark that
Having someone along who knows how to fight sure makes things easier.
You think? Anyone that has ever played any MMO could have told you that, which is exactly what everyone around you was doing, you just ignored them. The episode ends with them finding the boss of their current floor, leaving us on a cliffhanger. Or at least it would be if we weren't aware of Kirito's omnipotence. Alright, so jumping right into the action, here we are eating lunch. Turns out the boss looked a lot tougher than they were expecting, so Kirito and Asuna take some time to consider what to do next. Klein suddenly shows up again, and I really don't know why they keep doing this. If they're never going to promote him to a main member of the cast, then all this does is remind me of this character they've wasted. Now that Klein's here though, he's shocked to see Kirito with another player, considering his history as a solo player. He's immediately awestruck by her and tries to flirt, so the Beater earns his title and gives him a quick Soon after Klein's group shows up, this army does as well. These guys have been building their ranks in preparation for pushing further ahead into the game. They have total confidence in the idea that they're able to beat the boss, despite Kirito and the gang trying desperately to advise against it. They decide to proceed anyways, and by the time our characters catch up with them, they've clearly already been defeated. This is actually a part of the episode that's pretty interesting, since it presents a conflict for Kirito that calls back to the guild that he lost several episodes back. This forces him to make a quick decision on whether or not he should risk his life to save these people. While there still are a decent amount of issues here and there, I do have to say this episode is probably the best one so far. I've been a lot more entertained than I have been with the previous episodes because this one finally makes progress toward the main goal of escaping the game. It's nice to say something positive for once, and who knows, it may happen again. Just let me finish the episode first. So once the leader of the army is killed, Asuna impulsively sprints toward the boss, but quickly finds out she's no match either. But you know who is a match for him?
It's not cool to put me in the same class with those noobs. I made it to floors that were higher than any of the other testers. That's a fact.
Honestly though, this was a little better than usual because he had to resort to revealing his sword skill that until now he's been hiding from everyone. His skill is that he's able to dual wield, which I guess is something nobody else that we know of can do in this game. That makes enough sense on its own, but why does dual wielding seem to be a foreign concept to these people? They're literally saying things like, what the heck was that? Or, I've never seen anything like that. Like, even if you've never seen anyone do it in the game before, what he's doing is completely self-explanatory. He's got a sword in each hand. Anyways, he ends up beating the boss, but almost gets killed in the process. This part does a good job of developing Kirito and Asuna's bond, showing her being vulnerable when faced with the possibility of losing him. Once everyone knows he's okay, they start asking him about dual wielding. He explains that it just appeared in his inventory one day and gives no further explanation. I probably shouldn't criticize this yet because it could be a mystery for later, but count it as one anyways because it probably isn't. Klein's group continues on to the next floor, leaving Kirito and Asuna alone to bone. Sorry about that. She actually just tells him that she's going to leave her clan to prioritize teaming up with him. However, when she tries to leave, they won't let her. They're supposedly struggling to get by as is, so they can't afford to lose a member as valuable as Asuna. To settle things, the clan leader challenges Kirito to a duel over who gets to keep Asuna. What is this, the Wild West? The episode starts with Asuna explaining how tough this fight's about to be, which is pretty necessary to let us know that, oh, okay, Kirito isn't invincible in this fight. So they slap swords for a bit and, oh, what do you know, he lost. I guess you could say the beater is now the beaten. Please, I'm really trying here. One condition of the fight that I didn't mention was that his loss means he now has to join their guild as well. So that he does, but he's a big strong solo player, so he's not happy about it. Asuna asks him why he's such a loner, and he explains that he once was in a guild of people who weren't as strong as him, and that one day they were tragically... No. No. I knew this stupid episode was what they would use to justify his edginess. It's just so hard to take this seriously when this episode was just so incredibly rushed. I wouldn't doubt some viewers have completely forgotten about it by this point. I mean, I haven't, but I can't wait till I do. Anyways, now Kirito is sent off on his first mission with the guild, accompanied by this guy and, oh, the bodyguard. I wonder why Kirito is being separated from Asuna. What could this possibly mean? As if it wasn't obvious enough already, it's now revealed that this dude is up to no good. He mercilessly kills the other guy with them while laughing like a madman. Then, he slowly tilts his head back towards Kirito and shoots him a cold gaze, overflowing with bloodlust. He makes his way toward him, tightly clutching his blade. I'm sorry, I'm trying to add some tension here, but this guy is just so not intimidating. Since we don't really know anything else about him, he just comes off as a goofy, cartoonishly evil dude. Pretty much just like the guys from Laughing Coffin. Oh god! They really didn't even try with this guy. I mean, he doesn't even give any sort of reason as to why he's doing this other than, oh look, he's in the crazy murder guild. Yeah, I get that he's just a rampaging maniac, but why is he targeting Kirito and Asuna specifically? It's just a little silly, but it's not a huge deal at the end of the day, I guess. Plus, now we get to see Asuna show up and pound some serial killer Okay, yeah, I'm hard. And by the looks of it, so is Kirito, because he now overcomes his paralysis to help her. He loses a hand, but he's not going to let that ruin this perfect opportunity to make out with and pledge his life to Asuna. Man, talk about letting your crotch steer. But I guess it was worth it because, oh shit, Kirito's about to get some.
No, wait, I didn't... I mean, I just...
I mean, you what? Why are you wasting this? It turns out he just wanted to spend the night with her, and it's not fair. Why does every girl fall for Kirito when he doesn't even want it? Anyways, now she's just incredibly embarrassed because he made this really awkward, so she runs up and knocks him out with a well-deserved wallop. Later that night, they're laying in bed, and okay, I remember this from the first time I watched it, so I'm gonna have to act surprised by how silly this is. They're getting married? Yeah, Kirito decides to secure the bag permanently right off the bat. He is taking no chances losing this one. They should have been focusing on developing this relationship from the start instead of wasting time with short and unnecessary plot lines. Sadly though, things are not slowing down anytime soon. Now this episode starts with our main characters taking a leave of absence from the guild after their attempted murder. They're running off to embrace their new marriage by getting a house together in the countryside. A lot of this episode is really just Kirito and Asuna enjoying their new life together, taking some time off the front lines. This could be great if their romance was properly developed. It's a lot more compelling to watch a bond naturally develop in a way that makes us feel like the characters are real people. Not this fairy tale married after the first kiss nonsense. Since you guys have even less experience with these characters, it only makes sense that you care even less about this stuff, so I'm just gonna skip to where things actually happen. So about 8 minutes in, the newlyweds are walking through the forest when Kirito gets this creepy smile on his face and tries to scare Asuna by telling her ghosts are said to be lurking in this area. And wouldn't you know it, just when he does, there's a
Ghosts! Ghosts!
or at least that's what they thought it was, but it turns out it's just a little girl. The girl's unconscious by the time they get to her, so they take her in and watch over her until she wakes up. When she does, she makes it clear that she has no memory of her past and knows nothing but her own name, which is Yui. Kirito tries to teach her how to say his name, but it's a little difficult for her to pronounce, so she just calls him Daddy. No, stop. Don't look at me like that. That's what she called him. No, seriously, this isn't coming from me. I didn't do anything. She calls Kirito Daddy and Asuna Mommy, so they decide that she is going to be their child now. That's right, folks. Not only are they married, not only do they have a brand spanking new pad, but now they also have a kid. I mean, at this rate, we can expect the next episode to start off with their vow renewals 20 years down the line, and ending on the cliffhanger that they're getting divorced. The pacing is what people should be talking about when they hate on this show. The complaints I generally hear are mainly concerning Kirito being overpowered and it just being a power fantasy, which I do agree with. However, being a power fantasy alone doesn't make it bad. I mean, Berserk is a power fantasy. Come on, don't tell me your brain doesn't insert you into Guts' shoes every time he fights an apostle. But it's those qualities paired with awful story pacing that make this truly hard to enjoy sometimes. So yeah, now that we got a solid 10 minutes of getting used to this new marriage dynamic, we now have to get used to it being a family one. It's like the author was worried that our attention spans couldn't stay engaged with the story if he didn't shake things up constantly. I feel like I should talk more about this, but it really just falls under the same pacing issues I've already been repeating, so there's not much else for me to say about it. After Yui gets settled in, Kirito and Asuna take her down to the first floor of the game to look around and see if anything jogs her memory. When they get there, they see that some soldiers are taking advantage of citizens by taxing them and holding debt over their heads. Asuna asserts her dominance and scares them off, but only moments later Yui starts to glitch or something. Yeah, we don't really know what happened to her until the next glorious twist that awaits in the next wonderful episode. Wait, where are we? Who are all these random characters? Who's this? Oh god, it's another side story. So this person needs Kirito and Asuna's help to go save someone who was tricked and trapped deep in a dungeon. So to once again pull away from having any plot development, we're gonna go save this guy. This is kind of irrelevant, but I just want to mention this weird scene where they try to give the illusion of camera movement by just distorting the image. I just thought it was strange, and I don't know if I've ever seen this done before, or at least not this obviously. Anyways, Kirito's tanking through as usual until they see the player who they're here to find. Trying to get to him sets off a trap though, which spawns a powerful looking enemy. Kirito and Asuna both give it their all, but are very clearly outmatched. Yui then intervenes and appears to be sacrificing herself to save her parents, but just when she's about to be obliterated, aw, just like her daddy. She then proceeds to manifest a sword containing the power of the sun from her bare hands and engulfs the monster in flames. As if the stakes weren't low enough already, now we can always depend on Yui, who is basically the equivalent of a god in this game's world. It turns out she's just an AI built into the game's code for the purpose of comforting struggling players. However, she was condemned from interacting with anyone at the launch of the game. All she could do was bear witness to all the tragedy unfolding around her. She was eventually drawn to Kirito and Asuna, seeing their more positive emotions shine from time to time. She explains that she wanted to observe them in a way that wouldn't be noticed, so that's why she was in the forest. Why did she have amnesia though, I hear you possibly asking? Well, don't ask me, they didn't tell me either. They literally don't explain the most important part, which only seems to indicate that this was just a convenient way for the author to hide what she is for an episode. Yui for some reason has a feeling that she's going to be terminated from the game. She did explain why, but it's a bunch of gibberish basically, so I'm not even going to try to understand it. She seems to be right though, because she starts fading away. This gets Asuna extremely worked up, and I think I've said enough about how bad the pacing in the show is, so I'll put this short. Scenes like this just come off as awkward because the audience had no time to grow attached to this character, who, might I remind you, was just introduced last episode. Stop trying to make heavily emotional scenes without any build-up at all. It creates nothing but pure distilled cringe. But hold on, it may not even matter because Kirito has an idea. He runs to his keyboard and starts frantically clickety-clacking until somehow he's able to retract Yui's essence from the system and save her. Okay, this is just so obviously bullshit that I'm not even going to elaborate further. They plan to one day use this essence to bring her back somehow, so until then, Asuna wears her as a necklace. The episode ends with particles of Yui blowing through the air and saying,
Good luck, Mommy.
"What the fuck is going on? I thought she was in the necklace." So now this episode starts, and here we are watching Kirito fish. Okay, this isn't fucking funny anymore. Why are we concerned with fishing when there's only one episode left in this arc after this? Anyways, he hasn't managed to catch anything yet, but he's approached by a fisherman who seems to be much more skilled in this area. That's right, Kirito, you may be a beater, but you're nothing in the presence of a master baiter. I'm gonna spare you guys and skip the first half of this episode considering it's just this dumb event where they catch a huge fish and it's completely pointless and out of place here in the story. After this fishing event, the clan summons Kirito and Asuna back to the front lines for something important. So I guess we'll see you later, master baiter, but before they leave, they have a quick conversation. They talk about how there is value to life inside this game, and every time they start talking about learning to accept their lives in the game while they're stuck here, I can't help but imagine the potential that could have been reached if it was the main focus of this arc. Just imagine if instead of using the majority of the runtime for underwhelming side stories, they used it to develop an actual story. For example, what if they used this arc to develop unbreakable bonds between Kirito, Asuna, and a group of friends around them? Then, when they do eventually figure out how to escape the game, it would be all kinds of emotional seeing them have to leave these people they struggled with and grew to love to return to their regular lives. Instead, what we get is a brief bit of development every now and then all of a sudden this arc is about to be over. So anyways, yeah, let's return to this sorry state that the show actually ended up in. So the clan summoned Kirito and Asuna because anyone who isn't them is completely incompetent and useless in this show. Proving my point, the leader reveals that they summoned them to go save the rest of the idiots who are on the front lines. So eventually they go to do so, of course, and it looks like the whole gang's here. You know, all these characters we've grown to know and love over the course of the show. I'm sorry, but it doesn't say much when the most developed side characters in this little Avengers Assemble moment are Klein and this blacksmith. Like, this is made to feel like some profound moment where these characters are all reuniting, but really they hardly united in the first place. This is just a cheap way to make the last encounter feel more grand and rely on the spectacle of a massive fight. A spectacle that, might I add, is riddled with freeze frames and wonky CG. To be fair, there are moments that look nice, but it's too inconsistent to be worth praising. The episode ends after the first part of this fight, so I guess now it's time to move on to this arc's finale. I know, hard to believe this part of the story is almost over when essentially nothing has happened, but without further ado, let us proceed into... So the battle continues for about 2 minutes until the opening theme interrupts and we cut to the aftermath. Okay, whatever. I'm not gonna complain that I don't have to see any more of this. It turns out there are still 25 floors to go, so everyone is losing hope of getting through this. But suddenly, Kirito notices something off about the commander. He attacks him based on this suspicion, and finds out that he's actually none other than the creator of SAO himself, Akihiko Kaiba. I never said his name before, but that's his name, by the way. Anyways, he remarks at Kirito with a villainous, "How did you find out it was me?" And Kirito claims it was because he did an attack that was just too fast during their duel. Cool that you never mentioned that, even though it could have certainly saved some lives. As soon as he's found out, Kaiba says that he is in fact the final boss of the game after all.
So the strongest player in the whole game ends up being the final boss. Kinda cliche, isn't it?
Well, I was gonna say something here, but it looks like Kirito just did it for me. It's crazy how suddenly this encounter happens. I mean, we just essentially warped to the final stretch of the game at the end of the last episode, and then warped to the end of that final stretch right after. But I guess we're here now, so let's just continue. Kaiba challenges Kirito for a duel for the incentive of clearing the game and gaining everyone's freedom. In other words, the problem of escaping the game now has an incredibly simple solution. So they fight, and oh god, it looks like he's losing, and oh shit, Asuna's dead. And oh, now he's not losing, and Asuna's not dead. Yeah, just as Kirito is dying at the hands of Kaiba, he comes back as a glitch spirit or something, I don't know, and defeats him once and for all. Once he's defeated, Kirito joins Asuna in VR Heaven, where they're greeted by the creator. He assures them that all of the surviving players have been logged out and returned to the real world, but Kirito gets angry with him, questioning why he caused the deaths of thousands. The question you've probably been asking yourself this whole time, what's his reason for doing this, is answered in the most abysmal fashion possible. By that, I mean it isn't answered. This is beyond lazy writing at this point, but this is already such an infamously bad part of the series, so I won't get any more dramatic about it. The game world starts falling apart now, but it's polite enough to give Kirito and Asuna one more nice moment first. He reveals to her that his real name is actually Kazuto, and they share one last kiss before they're ejected from the game. Once free from the game, Kazuto wakes up in the hospital and immediately starts searching for Asuna in the real world. What the hell, dude? That was such an incomprehensible mess that I'm struggling to even make words about it. So many things were left unclear, but what was made crystal clear is the fact that the show isn't interested in answering your questions. It just wants you to sit back like the bozo you are and enjoy the flashing colors. So I guess there we have it. That's the Aincrad arc of SAO. That wasn't exactly the masterpiece I remembered. I've talked plenty about all of this arc's issues, so I don't have too much to say here. What I will say, however, is that I am terrified. I'm terrified because this arc is what I remember to be my favorite part of the whole series. This was only the first half of season 1, and the next half is an entirely new section of the story. This section in particular is so bad that even when I loved this first arc, I found it to be far less enjoyable. As bad as the Aincrad arc is, it's understandable. I mean, I just learned the author of the original manga wrote the whole thing in like a weekend or something. But just you wait until you see the horrors that await us in the next video. I don't know if I can...